back with a new book, Salem's Children by Mary Leader. Don't mind the reflection off my lamp light. My intention was to find a spare copy of this at a library or something, but I could not find one. I guess I'm going to have to read this in a weird manner. Racked with fear. I don't even want to know anything about the book. Let's just go. What year is this? The hand of Satan is upon them. I will not read any of that. I don't want to know what any of this is about. 1979. To Leslie Cross, my friend and mentor, who was Wes in Triad and who, before his death in 1977, gave me criticism and encouragement which helped shape Salem's Children, and to Robert and Beryl Graves, and to my mother, whose dearest dream was for me to become an author, and through who I am descended from the Stoutons. Not sure who that is. I'm not going to read this. You can look at it if you want, but I'm not reading that bullshit. Salem's Children. What year did I say this was? 1979. Chapter 1. An insistent ringing shattered my slumber. Wildly unable to orient myself, I groped in the dark until my fingers closed over the smooth plastic. Submit, submit, do you hear me? Came the whisper. I know you're there. Submit. We hate you. We hate you. The words trailed off into faint breathing at the other end of the line. Then a click and the line went dead. Kid stuff, I muttered, trying to resettle my weary body into the sagging alien mattress. But the last dregs of slumber had drained away, and reality crowded in on me. This was Aunt Bo's great bed, arched between twin walls of intricately carved walnut. It may have conformed to her more ample contours, but to me it was a torture rack. Only exhaustion on this, my first night in the house Aunt Bo had unexpectedly willed me, had granted me any sleep. And I said I'm going to hold this in an awkward manner because I don't want to break the spine. So I will use the diary to help me. Come here, buddy. Come here. Had granted me any sleep at all, and I found myself devoutly praying for an early arrival of the van from New York with my own furnishings. I'd had misgivings about occupying Aunt Bo's room. What do we got? Delilah. I'm going to read your face. I'd had misgivings about occupying Aunt Bo's room, at least so soon, but Dana, the half-Indian woman who had been Aunt Bo's companion during the last few years of her life, had already installed my things, and I'd been too tired to protest. Folding myself into the fetal position proved no answer. I immediately slid down into the center. What the hell is on me? Feels like a little bug. Into the center of the bed, my knees pressing against my chin. In desperation, I piled the pillows high against the ornate headboard and up and switched on the light. Laid across the cedar chest was a down comforter. I folded it tightly and slid it under my legs. This helped, but still I didn't sleep. Somewhere out there in the dark was someone who knew me and didn't want me there. Someone who knew the name I seldom used, who was perhaps voicing Peacehaven's real feelings about me. But that was being morbid, not Mormon. I rose and tiptoed into the room where my two daughters lay sleeping, Carried in her crib and Rowan in the big bed, relaxed and rosy in the soft glow of the nightlight. Dana had bundled them into bed as soon as she'd given us a light supper, and they'd fallen asleep with hardly a murmur, tired out from the long drive from New York. It was a quiet, unheralded entry we'd made that afternoon into Peace Haven. Here in the southwest corner of Wisconsin, the town had seemed empty as we drove along the main street, but that was natural since it was the dinner hour. I tried to point out old landmarks to Rowan, but many no longer existed. There, over there, I exclaimed, pointing to a red brick building with large plate glass windows. That's where your great grandfather's general store used to be. Looks like it's a teen shop now. How had I once thought it so large and imposing? I didn't know little towns had parking meters, Rowan said. Where? I don't see any. There, she pointed. That? I began to laugh. That's the old hitching post your great grandfather had in front of his store. All the merchants used to have them, but I see the others have been taken down. Rowan sat quietly, holding the baby in her lap as I chattered on, trying to recreate the peace haven that had once charmed me. I'll just drive around the corner and show you the Congregational Church where your grandparents were married. Your great grandmother donated the pipe organ in memory of. It's gone, I exclaimed, staring down a street that dead ended at a broad expanse of water. I never thought the river would go this far. I drove slowly past the wrought iron gate and a length of the iron fence that had once surrounded the graveyard. These and a buckled section of cement walk on a collapsing bank. A cement walk on a collapsing bank gave a brief amen to what had once been Peace Haven's leading church. Someone had planted pretty blue morning glories along the fence, as though to give the cemetery one final, ever-blooming bouquet. Farther down the riverbank, a small boy fished from a toppled tombstone. I tried to explain that the river had been shifting its channel for over a century, gradually inundating the town, but my daughter was unaffected by the loss. What are those funny little islands out in the river? Sandbars. They appear and disappear. We used to go out there in canoes and have picnics. Until that was spoiled for me, I remembered, gripping the wheel tightly. Weren't you afraid they'd sink while you were on them? It doesn't happen that quickly. People sometimes camp there all night. I turned back toward the main street. What's that? Rowan pointed to a stone monument in the square. It looks like an upside down L. It's supposed to look like a gallows. She was puzzled. I thought they burned the witches. They didn't burn them, they hanged them. Here? Oh, not here, I said hurriedly. In Salem in 1692, reading the date off the base of the monument. About a century and a half later, Joshua Martin, Aunt Bo's great-grandfather, led a group of descendants of so-called witches out here to Peace Haven. Joshua's ancestress, Susanna Martin, was one of those hanged. He founded Peace Haven as a memorial to the victims of the witchcraft trials. They used to make a big thing of it, but it's more a town legend now, and a badge of distinction, I suppose. If Aunt Bo was descended from a witch, then we must be too, she reflected, a note of pride in her voice. Sorry, Rowan, we can't claim it. We aren't related on that side. Oh, obvious disappointment. The sun was already descending in the west, and I knew we should be getting on, but I was enjoying just sitting here and chatting with my daughter. A rare occurrence these days. Do you think there are any witches here now? No, of course not. There's no such thing, I laughed. They even sell broomsticks here without anyone getting nervous. There are witchcraft shops in New York, she said, skeptically. That's different. That's business. What did the Salem witches do that was so bad? She asked after a pause. Oh, I hesitated. trying to remember. People imagined they did everything from souring milk to murdering babies. Rowan studied the monument. The stone noose was attached to the granite gallows by a massive wrought iron ring. I'll bet that noose would swing, she speculated. Let's try it. What do you got, bruv? We'll do it another day. Dana's expecting us for supper, I sighed. It's not going to be the same without Aunt Bo. I wish you could have known her, Rowan. But my daughter had lapsed into one of her too frequent silences. She shifted Cariad in her arms and nuzzled her gently. I turned the car up a street leading to the bluff road, feeling pangs of guilt as we flashed by the homes of Peacehaven. I hadn't visited Aunt Bo since before my marriage, and yet she had willed most of her property to me, a half niece, instead of her full niece and nephew. I could see her now, tall, heavily built, her dark gray streaked hair swept into a French twist, color high and eyes alight whenever the conversation got around to politics or social conditions. Her acousticon? Her acousticon. She never could get the hang of a hearing aid. Pushed forward to catch her listeners' replies. We proceeded along the elm. Jesus, it snapped back. We proceeded along the elm arched street, once completely vaulted by dense foliage, but now showing the ravages of Dutch elm disease. I slowed as we came to a large, pale, yellow clapboard house with black shutters and white trim. That's where Aunt Bee and Uncle George Proctor used to live, I said. But Rowan gave no sign she heard me. There we go. That's a little too high, though. How about you? Your cousin Ward and his wife live there now. I tried to think of something that would interest her. They have a daughter who's only about a year older than you, and a son in medical school. I thought I detected a flicker of interest in the blue eyes, half turned away from me, but her mouth remained set. I stepped on the accelerator again, and soon the canopy of elms slid away to reveal a lofty bluff ahead of us. The top momentarily obscured by a towering chimney rock that rose from the slope at the base of the escarpment. What do you got? That's old Earthmaker's tomahawk pointing to the sky, I explained. The Indians believe the chimney rock is sacred, and I paused as the rough outlines of a house, perched above a limestone outcropping, its great windows flaming in the sunset, hove into view. There it is, the phoenix, I cried. It's funny looking, Rowan said. It sticks out in all directions. It's a beautiful house, I protested. Frank Lloyd Wright designed it to make it look like part of the bluff. Who was he? Well, at least my daughter didn't know everything. A famous architect who used to live near here. Some people didn't like him, but Aunt Bo championed. So, when her home burned down, he insisted on designing a new one for her. You see, his own home burned several times, so he understood. The two of them had a glorious time planning and arguing because Aunt Bo could be just as stubborn as he. For instance, she wanted the tower. He told her she'd soon be too old for climbing stairs, which made her all the more determined. I need a tower, she declared, so I can watch over Peacehaven by day and the heavens by night. As for the stairs, I'll climb them until the day I die, and that's just what she did. The phoenix slid from sight as the road followed a chicken wing pattern up the side of the bluff. I pulled into the driveway of a small white house burrowed into the hillside, where a tiny spare figure with a shock of crew-cut white hair, was working away at the woodpile. Hi, Darcy, I called. She dropped her axe and came toward us, wiping her hands on her faded jeans. She was just as I remembered her, the same wrinkled, weather-beaten face, her hair only a little whiter. Well, for land's sakes, if it isn't the crown princess herself. Her grip her grip ground the bones of my hand together. Good to see you, Darcy, I said, flexing my hand. Is Hannah in the house? Her mouth drooped. Hannah died 8 years ago. I live here with my husband. He's inside restoring a melodeon. Darcy with a husband? Her relationship with Hannah had been whispered about in town for years. What were the gossips saying now? Cariad, what kind of name is that? She boomed after I'd introduced my daughters. It's Welsh for love, I explained. Naming her Cariad had been my requiem for Owen, her father. You wouldn't be wanting a kitten, would you? How many do you have now? Darcy and her cats. She hadn't changed. It's really difficult to read this like this. Don't like it, bruv. 29. I could spare 2 or 3. We'll have to think about it, Darcy. We'd better get up. We better get on up to the house now. Dana's expecting us. I'm not sure a kitten would be good for Carrie, Rowan interjected primly. They take the breath away from babies. Darcy squinted. You've been telling her old wives' tales, Mitty? No. Where'd you hear that, Rowan? Her cobalt eyes widened. But, Mother, I was sure well, maybe it was one of the kids at school. Cats are witch animals, aren't they? Only on Halloween Eve, dear. Halloween, dear. I should just start over. I'm really botching this. What about Midsummer Eve? Don't witches and cats come out then? I wouldn't know. I don't even know when Midsummer Eve is. I confessed. All right, you're leaving too, Goethe. There we go. It's tomorrow night, she said with 13-year-old superiority. I was duly impressed. How did you know that, darling? Oh, I belonged to a coven at school. We had seances and worked the Ouija board and everything. Creepy. Child's play, I told myself, but more than ever, I felt my decision to move out here had been right. If you're talking about that high-powered club that was always asking for assessments, I'm not sorry you're out of it. You never mentioned witchcraft. It was a secret. We signed in blood, and they put a curse on you if you told. But now I don't belong anymore. It doesn't matter. Rowan, I don't think I like the idea of you fooling around with such things. I reproved her. I thought you didn't believe in such things. I don't, but... Anyway, we weren't real witches, she assured me. They're bad. The only people we ever cursed were our teachers. That was bad too, I said sternly. Besides, you shouldn't keep secrets from me. Oh, I keep secrets from you all the time, Mother. She averted her eyes as she shifted the baby in her arms. Darcy intervened. I used to belong to a secret spy organization when I was her age, she said. And if cats are witches' familiars, then I know what that makes me. 29 times over, she chuckled. I suppose it's the witch blood in me. Rowan leaned forward, almost crushing Cariad, who whimpered in her sleep. You have witch blood. Yep, like most people here. Except in you, Mitty. I hope you won't hold that against me, I laughed. Never have I? She snorted. Though there's some as does. Though there's some as does. I expect, especially lately. Too bad you're related only by marriage. You don't have any Salem blood at all. Witch blood, you mean? I teased. Martyr's blood, she corrected me stiffly. I was only using your term, Darcy. It's all right for me to joke about it. I've got witch blood from both sides, but it wouldn't be smart for you to. Understand what I mean? I nodded, a ripple of apprehension at the back of my mind. You make me wonder if I'll ever be accepted. Sure you will, if you respect the rules, and I'll help you, Mitty, all I can, but don't ask me to come to the party. Party? Well, not really. More of a welcoming by relatives and friends. They're all coming up to the Phoenix tomorrow night. She ran her lean, brown, patched hand over the white hairs on her chin. You know me, never did like to dress up, and I refuse to be part of a snooping bee. There's a lot I'd like to say, but I guess I'd better not. Come back and meet Marion when you have time. Marion? Then I remembered. Your husband? What's your last name now, Darcy? Zagrodnik. Her eyes twinkled. Try to wrap these Anglo-Saxon tongues here around that one, but at least Marion is spelled with an O. She's gross, Rowan observed as we continued up the side of the bluff. I thought she was a man. Oh, shit. Sometimes I think she thinks so too. But don't be so critical of the natives, young lady. That won't make you popular. After a moment, she asked in a small, stifled voice, Do we have to live here, Mother? You'll grow to love it. I tried to sound convincing. We'll go canoeing and we'll. A loud barking broke into my sentence. Heralding our approach was a majestic golden retriever which stood at the entrance to the vast turnaround that separated the two houses on the top of the bluff. One was the Phoenix, so newly mine, and the other, a smaller building, was the oldest house in Peacehaven. Once Joshua Martin's home. This, the lawyer had written, Aunt Beau had willed to Dana. Two more dissimilar structures could hardly be found, I reflected, glancing from the free-formed contemporary lines of the Phoenix to the austere brown gables. Freya, quiet. A tall, statuesque woman with gray braids, hanging almost to her waist, came limping across the gravel to greet us. This must be Dana, I thought, noting how the sinking sun gilded her high cheekbones and made dark hollows of her eyes. Down, Freya, the woman commanded. Who else was Freya? Wasn't there another fucking Freya? She's all right, I replied, letting the dog sniff my hands. She's beautiful. She's going to have pups, isn't she? I straightened up and extended my hand. You're Dana. Aunt Beau wrote so much about you. She always wanted us to meet, Mrs. Llewellyn, she replied formally. Please, I want you to call me Mitty, I said, taking the baby from Rowan so she could climb out. This is Rowan and the baby is Carrie for short. My voice quivered. I'm not sure I want to go in. I can't imagine the Phoenix without Aunt Beau. Your aunt will always be here, she said quietly. Such a woman never dies. Now you must come in. I have made supper for you. Let me take the little one. I expected Carrie to start screaming, but to my surprise, she snuggled up to the woman, and a soft light crept into the blue eyes that were so strange to behold in an Indian face. It seemed a good sign again. I felt glad of my decision to move here. Now I tucked Carl's plump little arm. Why does it say Carl when it's Carrie? Now I tucked Carrie's plump little arm back under her coverlet and turned to Rowan. Her long silken lashes followed the curve of her cheeks, a shade darker than the gold-red curls. Sprawled on the pillow, in this moment it was mine, all mine. Impulsively I reached out and stroked the soft contour of her cheek, then quickly drew my hand away, as even in her sleep she seemed to shrink from my touch. She turned over on her side, her back to me. Daddy, she breathed. Oh no. Chapter 2. Back in my room, as I sat down before the marble-topped dressing table, the fragrance of Aunt Beau assailed me, a heavy, woodsy scent of bath powder and cologne. Her toilet articles were still set out. The ornate, silver-backed hairbrush had hand mirror and a comb, a small cloison, I don't know how to say that, cloison tray full of hairpins, and a hand-painted china hair receiver. Through the hole in the top, I could see a wad of fuzzy gray hair combings, the last tangible evidence of Aunt Beau. A board creaked behind me, and I stared into the mirror, half expecting to see her there, holding out her acousticon, but there was nothing, only my own tired face superimposed on the room behind me. Still, I couldn't rid myself of the impression that she was there watching. I hoped she wouldn't regret the plan I already had for redecorating this house. In spite of the contemporary architecture, Aunt Bo for Boadicea, had perversely filled it with Victorian antiques. Those articles hadn't been saved when the original house burned. She had faithfully sought to reproduce from antique shops as far away as Milwaukee and Chicago. I heard something rustle on the wallpaper like silk skirts brushing against it. But if Aunt Bo was there, I welcomed her presence. After that phone call, I was going to need all the support I could get, even from the astral plane. My counterpart in the mirror smiled at my little joke. Submit, whoever had called, had known my Christian name. My father had been a clergyman, which meant we moved every few years. How I used to dread those first days at a new school while the kids got their mileage out of the new girl with the weird name. How to explain that my mother was fanatic about family genealogy and that she couldn't carry her babies full term. The ninth attempt, I was supposed to be the ninth disaster. Mother went into postpartum psychosis and for days walked with her ancestors. Submit, she repeated over and over. Name her. Submit. Submit unto the Lord. I know now that she found the name in one of our family genealogies. My father, thinking to please her, had me christened Submit and recorded it before he or anyone else realized I wasn't going to follow my brothers and sisters into limbo. Mother snapped back to reality the day I was taken out of the incubator and placed in her arms. Submit, she puzzled. What a peculiar name. Who did that to her? Then, seeing my father's face, she realized that he'd done it out of love. She said no more, but did her best to make it up to me by nicknaming me Mitty. And anyone who wants to be my friend had better call me that. Owen didn't care, though. He had loved to truffle my feathers by calling me Submit. A Welshman, oh shit, a Welshman with the Welsh talent for singing. He could also tease so charmingly that one didn't mind. But no, I told myself as I climbed back into bed, I wouldn't let the memories invade me. Owen's meteoric rise as a musical comedy star on Broadway, the inevitable stresses, his resultant addiction to cocaine, psychological if not physical, but just as bad. But that's just as bad. The deterioration of our marriage, then death. What do you got, buddy? How many times are you gonna say hi? I rolled over trying to find a comfortable spot, but another thought brought me up short. Rowan. She blamed me for Owen's accident, as if I held the power to project destruction. Nor would she let me forget it. Rowan, who was thus named because it rhymed with Owen, and because her hair was the color of the rowan berries that flamed over the hillsides in her father's native Wales. Rowan was a living reminder of that cold day in Switzerland when we were told by the police that Owen's car had been crushed by a van, his body mangled beyond recognition. Rowan had been hysterical. She'd shrieked at the young Swiss officer who tried to calm her. You don't understand, my daddy's dead, and Mommy wanted him dead. Then she broke off into great wrenching sobs and went limp, dragging his hand with her as she slumped to the ground. Rowan, darling, I knelt beside her and tried to take her in my arms. The Swiss had relinquished his hold, and now she flailed at me with her fists. Don't touch me, don't touch me. Call a doctor, Biddy, I pleaded. Rowan, sweetheart. Sweetheart, Rowan. Mommy loved Daddy. I cried, the tears streaming down my face. You just don't understand. Oh my God, Rowan, how can I make you understand? She'd gone suddenly still and cold and white, her eyes glittering. I don't believe you, she breathed. I hate you, Mother, I hate you. The phone jangled again, bringing me back to the present. I stared at it, knowing that if the ringing kept up, sheer curiosity would force me to answer. Submit, submit, move away, the caller chanted in her syrupy voice. We don't want you here. Silence now, but she was still there, listening. Whoever you are, why don't you tell it to my face? I exclaimed angrily, then bit my lip. That was exactly what she wanted, to know she had reached me. I slammed down the receiver, then picked it up again, intending to dial the operator to see what could be done about such calls, but the line was still engaged, only her breathing echoing along the wires. I spun the dial, glorying in the painful static I must be making, but whoever it was hung on until I set the phone back down on the hook. The evening quiet was almost suffocating. Years in New York had made me more attuned to noise than to this stillness. Now my ears began to pick up little sounds I wouldn't have noticed otherwise. Soft scratchings on the wallpaper, the death rattle of the refrigerator as it concluded its cycle, the warble of an owl abruptly suspended, a soft bleating, and the dull clink of a bell rapped on wood. Was there a goat in the neighborhood? And threading through it all, a low humming sound, almost like a soft chanting. I settled down into the hostile bed again and sat propped up against the pillows. There had been something familiar about that voice, but my acquaintanceship was limited. As I'd only spent my summers here, I didn't really belong, not in the sense the others did. My grandfather had moved to Peacehaven when he bought the town's general store, and he'd made things right by marrying the granddaughter of Joshua Martin. Aunt Bo and Aunt Bee had been the offspring of that marriage, but my mother came from his second wife, who was not from Peacehaven, nor was my father, so I was totally an outsider. Aunt Bo, who never married, inherited the bulk of her father's property, including the Martin holdings, and now in turn had willed most of it to me. The windfall had been welcome, for Owen had left very little. But resentment was natural. Darcy had tagged it right when she had called me the crown princess. Could it have been Charity Carrier on the phone? Aunt Bee's oldest child and first in line to inherit? She'd always seemed formidable to me, tiny and doll-like though she was. Tattletale and voice of conscience she'd been to her young brothers, Ward and Gareth. But anonymous phone calls in the middle of the night? Not Charity. As for Allison, Ward's wife, out of the question. There was Darcy, who was distantly related, but she couldn't whisper if she tried. Besides, Aunt Bo had left her some money and clear title to the house in which she'd formerly been a tenant. Another face came to mind, Iris, but she'd left town years ago. Iris Faulkner. I could still see her. Peacehaven's femme fatale. She and her father, the judge, had lived in the big house that straddled a rock islet and the tip of a tiny peninsula jutting out from the town. Some said Iris's mother drowned in the miniature strait that ran through the basement, and that her body floated on down to the Mississippi. Others maintained she eloped with a traveling salesman. There was no grave for her in the Peacehaven cemetery. Since Judge Faulkner always retired early, there was much speculation about a light often seen burning in the turreted room overlooking the river. Perhaps the servants put it there for a beacon, but gossip said it was Iris signaling her lovers. How many egos had she bruised? Ward had escaped because he was devoted to Allison. Gareth only toyed with her at first, but I had reason to believe that he too finally succumbed, not fatally. If only I could forget Gareth, sweet Gareth. At my age, I was beneath Iris's notice. How I had longed for her sophistication. I considered dyeing my hair red, but no dye would have produced her subtle shade of amber, nor could I assume her air of mystery. Try as hard as I did to copy her indolent casualness, it never came across. So I'd been inordinately excited when she invited me to go canoeing with her that hazy summer day. We dropped anchor near a sandbar and let the canoe rock gently in the current. As we ate the sandwiches she'd brought, Iris dabbled her hand in the little eddies that swirled around us, her amber hair rippling over the pale skin of her breasts. We're anchored over the original Peace Haven, she mused. I gazed across the expanse of water toward the present town, sprawled along the shore. This far out? Farther. It extended over to the opposite shoreline. Imagine the people down there in their houses, or sitting in their church pews, or in their privies. But I heard it wasn't that way at all, I protested. No one got drowned. When the city sank, it was gradual. So they say, she sighed. It would have been so much grander my way. I can just see the land collapsing and the water rushing in like it did when a section of bank was washed out from under our house. Of course, I didn't really see it happen at all. I was sleeping and I dreamed that the river was my lover, that it could take on the shape of a man and come to me. And the next morning when I awoke, there was that big gap under the house. So maybe I wasn't dreaming after all. He was exciting as no boy has ever been. Father had the house reinforced and we just let the river flow beneath it. The way he took out that chunk of land all in one night, nothing can hold him back. I could never understand why he was so gentle with Peacehaven. I'd have drowned them all. Listen, hear the church bells down there? That's a cowbell across the river, I scoffed. No, no, it isn't, she insisted. It's church bells. The first church of Satan. Her voice was hypnotic. The city in the sea, I burst out. The what? It's a legend my mother told me about the city of Weiss. How the hell do you say that? Off the coast of Brittany. Their princess, Ahes, was very wicked. When she tired of her lovers, she had them killed, for her one true love was the sea itself. One day she stole her father's keys to the sea gates, and when the waters came boiling in, the people were drowned, and she became a mermaid, luring sailors to their death. They say that when the tide is low, you can see her beckoning in the waves and hear the cathedral bells. I paused, afraid of boring her, but her eyes were glowing. Fabulous, she exclaimed. I'd like to have been that princess. The name Ahes even sounded like Iris. Thinking of the power she had over think of the power she had over people, over men. Only Only the sea was worthy to be her bridegroom. She stopped. Someone was calling to us from the bank. My cousin Gareth stood there in swimming trunks, the sun gilding his bronzed body. He looked sturdy, but I knew, and so did she, that he was still recovering from his appendectomy. Gareth, she called through cupped hands. I bet him $5 he couldn't swim out to us. You didn't, I cried, dismayed. He's not well enough yet. She merely smiled as he poised for a dive. I tried to wave him back. Too late. He slid into the water and swam toward us with powerful strokes. Let's go get him, I pleaded, trying to reach around her to pull up anchor, but she pushed me away. Leave him alone, she hissed. He'd hate for us to make a sissy out of him. Helplessly, I watched as the cramp seized him. He struggled to keep afloat, clawed at the eddy that caught him, whirled him around, then sucked him under. Still, Iris guarded the anchor. In desperation, I tried to throw myself out of the canoe and swim to him, but she caught hold of my arm and forced me back down. Then she balanced herself delicately, her golden green eyes glittering, and flashed into the water. I hoisted anchor and paddled toward the spot where I'd seen him go down, but we never found him. She'd come out the heroine, denying the bet and saying she held me back to save me from drowning myself. But I must push away such memories. I must remember the good times in Peacehaven, the golden summers, rambles through the woods, muddy excursions in the caves, and riding ponies at a nearby farm. Idyllic, that was Peacehaven, in contrast to the clamor and crowding of New York. In Peacehaven, even tragedy was tinged with romance. My own recent tragedy was not similarly tinged. After Rowan's hysterics over Owen's death, she had withdrawn into herself until Cariad's posthumous birth gave her a new interest. She forgot her dolls and lavished her affection on the baby to the point of excluding me. Was this revenge? No, I could have fought that, but I felt she was trying to protect Cariad from me. Her schoolwork suffered. Was it because I couldn't afford to give her the things she'd been used to? Cocaine and gambling debts had eaten up much of Owen's estate. Aunt Bo's bequest had seemed heaven sent. Yet here I was staring at the phone, almost a live thing now, waiting to pounce. Well, I'd stop that. I unplugged it and lay back. Just in time it began to ring downstairs. So let it ring and ring and ring. My tired body slumped into the bottomless pit in the center of the bed, slipped through, and I was out of it. I cast a swift backward glance at a form lying there quietly, and then I was out into the night. There thou that where's the what? There thou where's thou been, miss? Mun, I do thy chores so my daughter can walk out with her fine young gentleman. Be thankful I, Hannah, told thy father about it. His heart be set on thee marrying the Cooper fellow, if'n he bespeaks thee. The hell is that all about? Daughter, why was she calling me that? And what quaint speech! That wasn't my mother. This bent, wizened woman with a swollen stomach, lugging a milk pail into a kitchen I'd never seen before. A huge fireplace dominated the room, suspended by chains. From the blackened inner walls were a great cauldron of steaming water and a smaller stew pot. I apologize again for my fucking awful reading right now. Down on the hearth, a haunch of venison was turning slowly, propelled by a counterweighted rope that took all day to unwind. But how did I know that? She set the milk down on the table, swatted the flies away, and covered it with a cloth, then shuffled over to the stew pot to give it a stir. Thy sister Becky wasn't as choosy, she complained. Her cheeks reddened, and bright from the savory steam. She be content to be a good wife, and mind thee, that man o' hers be a big landowner some day. But even that wouldn't satisfy thee. The title of good wife is nae good enow. Dad have a fine house in Dorchester, I don't know how you say that, with silver plate and linen, and the right to be called Mistress Stowe. Mother, be you silent. Did I say that? It was as if someone else within me, long asleep, had just awakened. This woman bore no resemblance to my mother, and yet there was something in her voice that was familiar, as were these surroundings, like an old garment hung in a closet and forgotten, then rediscovered and tried on once more. Words came tumbling out of me. "'Tisn't so," I protested. I would be weren't a gentleman. Then might you believe I love him for myself, and he swears he loves me too. Who was I, and where? I touched my dress, coarse woolen stuff of a dark red. I owned nothing like this, and yet it seemed to belong to me. Nor did it seem strange that the long braids falling across my breasts were tawny yellow, not my own mahogany color. "S'blood," she was swearing under her breath. "What has love to do with a good marriage? Like as not, he'll have thy maidenhead and be off with him. I faith, I faith. He could have had that a long time ago if it tweren't that he's for the ministry and all so pure." The shock in her face made me relent. "Nay, mother, I wouldn't allow that. I'll be no gentleman's jade." Jade, huh? She tasted the stew, sloshing it around in her mouth critically, then reached for more salt. "'Twere an evil day when he first came to this house," she complained. "Ye gained a lover and lost a friend." "Dorcas," I snorted. "She was ne'er a friend, and he only a passing fancy for her." "I still say it was an evil day," she reiterated. "'Twere a rainy one, I'll allow. I luxuriated in the memory of it." His horse had thrown a shoe in the rain, and he hadn't been able to journey on that night. I remembered casting shy glances at the tall, slender young man seated on the inglenook. He was still in mourning for his father, so he said, though he had died 5 years past fighting the king back in England. I suspected the son wore his somber habit not so much out of deference for the old man, because it suited his taste. Yet firelight did elfin things to his deep-set eyes and his long, narrow face. This was the first time we'd met, but I'd heard about him from Dorcas, who'd said he'd been coming to our village to oversee some of the properties he and his older brother, Thomas, had inherited. I didn't mean the rain, though to be sure it might have held off a day or two, so he wouldn't a had spent the night under our roof, the woman grumbled. "Faith, I know not why any maid would take to such a moody chap. He'll be a strict un, I'll warrant, as if our lives weren't gloomy enow with all this piety. Many's the time I wish for the old days when we could dance around the maypole and celebrate Christmas with the Yule log and the Lord old misrule." "And mother, you talk like a papist," I cried, peering out the window to make sure no one had been listening. "If people were to hear you, 'twould go ill with you." She stood with her arms akimbo, the spoon dripping a thick brown liquid on the floor. A long gray cat dropped down from the windowsill and began to lap it up. "The time will come," she said distantly, "when one belief will understand another, and the sooner the better, but we'll never know it. And the first will come, too, when no woman will be a good wife, and there'll not be the gulf twixt yeomen and gentlemen, but that's a long time a coming. Mary, my lass, I see naught but black around thy young gentleman. I know not what it means, but I fear for thee." His grandfather was no more than a country parson, pardon, but a younger son of a baronet. He'd have done better in Papist days. Then he might have been bishop. 'Tis better to be a poor parson with a wife and children than a bishop in a lonely palace, I said pompously. "Snails!" she exclaimed irreverently. "Think ye the bishops and cardinals didn't have their doxies?" Anything was to be expected of papists, even to horns sprouting out of their heads. Oh, I'd gotten her to bristling for sure. I felt a pang of remorse as I watched her bend down painfully to pet the cat. This baby was sure to be a boy. It taxed her so. "'Twas only teasing you I was, mother. My young gentleman's in Cambridge and won't be here for a fortnight. I went out to return those eggs we borrowed from Goody Tompkins, and 'twas a fair thing I did, for now I know she's no friend." She looked up at me through black slits. "Aye, I believe it. My grimalkin's been a spittin' at her." "There's my little love. Thou didst try to warn me. she crooned to the gray shadow rubbing against her leg. Now tell me, when has that busybody got up her sleeve? It's really curious that he mentions Grimalkin, because I bought a book today by Thomas Lynch, who wrote a book called Grimalkin. She and her gossip, Goody Stebbins, will be here this afternoon with a squash pie they baked. She wiped her hands carefully on her apron. Let's say I faith or La Faith. A faith that might be called Christian charity, but methinks I like it not. Do thee tell me what thou knowst, and how is it ye spy on our neighbors? Not spy, I protested, as I came along the fence to her backyard. I heard on the other side, she and Goody Stebbins were chuckling like a couple of magpies about how they put an old broken scissors in the pie. And they give it to you if you drop the pie or show fear. They'll cry out on you. She snorted, so they'd have me for a witch, would they? Iron, they say, no witch can abide by iron. Thankful Tompkins is a fool. Thinketh she I can stand o'er my iron kettles day after day and then be afeard of her silly scissors? Albeit I like not iron, 'tis not a seemly metal. 'Tis hard and ugly and full of death. Only today my paring knife turned on me. She showed me a long jagged cut on her thumb. I thank ye, Ain girl, or my girl. I thank ye, my girl, for warning Jesus Christ. Let's reread that. I thank ye, my girl, for warning me. Oh, 'twill be like needles going through me, but I'll not be frighted, for I be ready for it. She wiped her hands on her apron. Ah, Mary, I've been a burden to ye, but thou'rt a good lass. 'Tisn't you this time, mother, I said slowly. Dorcas is Goody Tompkins's niece, and methinks she put her up to this to spite me. It must be, it may be. Yet there are many who fear me, e'en though they ne'er prove naught. Nor shall. I know you to be a gospel woman, mother. Ah, but I can do things they can't, she sighed, lowering herself down on the ingle nook. Grimalkin sprang to her. Grimalkin sprang to her shoulder, and one worn hand crossed him gently. Things they say come from the devil, but I'll swear, Mary, you'll not find the name O Goody Town in the black man's book. Goody Stebbins says you turned yourself into a black cat and pounced on her bed. Wednesday night last. She spat into the fire. Like as not, she'd been at the ale again, and I don't need the sight to know that. But 'tis too free I've been with my remedies. Is't wrong to cure where the leech has failed, yet folks be feared of my powers. My willow and dandelion tea healed Ezra Herrick's rheumatism, since Mistress Conant's been taking my foxglove tea. Her ankles no longer swell, and her sinking spells be gone. And that after Dr. Endicott could do naught to help her. But 'twas foolish of me to warn Matt Hubbard, where others could hear, that he'd be killed by Indians if he went hunting afore Michaelmas. I seed it so plain, him lying there with the arrow through him. And when it happened, the tongue started wagging. But when they need me, they still come. When her man got took with back pain, Goody Tompkins came for my birchback remedy. But then his urine turned to blood, and she vowed I'd poisoned him. These things do not work in a day. Grimalkin glared at me with narrowed eyes as I took the hand that had been stroking him, and yet I cannot think he had much pleasure in that hand, so gnarled and tough or rough. Do not fear, I said softly. Those two gossips willna dear cry you out. Your birch bark will work. He's been taking it on the sly. When Goody Tompkins returns home, she'll find her Goodman's past the stone. Her eyes gentled, and she cupped her hand under my chin. Mary, my lass, thou'rt the one of my children who has the sight. Her face compressed into 1,000 wrinkles. Eh, but keep it close. It can cause thee naught but harm. Those who have it not think it be from the devil. Think you it might? She shook her head. Nay, 'tis from the old ones. And if thou'st read the scriptures, they'll see our Lord had it too. Now, get on with thy chores. Isaac is coming to call on thee tonight. I drew my breath in sharply. How do you know? She touched her hand to her head. That is how I know. Right now he hurries his work so he'll be through in time. She winced. Oh, oak. Ach. Whatever that is. Ach. I knew it. There'd be a blackened nail for me to treat tonight. Nay, I'll let thee do the treating. Thou hast a better balm for him. Thou hast a better balm for him. I prithee, mother, do not make me. Belike he'll take it for a sign o' love, and if he bespeaks me, I know father'll give consent. But I shan't marry him. I do not love Isaac. He is good and kind, but that is nae enow to make me want to bear his children. There was sorrow in her eyes. Mary, ye've ever been the headstrong one, though I might say little Sarah is summit like ye. Ye look too high. Do not try to wed out thy class. Do not try to wed out of thy class. I flung back my head. I ken my William loves me, and that's all that matters. I took her hand again. Tell me what you see. Naught. Know you not your own daughter's future? But I was talking to nothing. There was no woman, no hearth. I was dissolving back into the quiet form on the bed and sinking into a deep, deep sleep. What a clusterfuck of a reading that was. I'm embarrassed. That was almost an hour of reading, and my brain is broken now. Let's put this in here. I'm gonna go grab Grimalkin and read it. It's crazy that that's in there. Crazy, I tell you. Crazy.